Well, welcome back to another live, which is actually weird. We've been on a kind of like a hiatus for a while for Workshop Wednesdays that brought to you by schoolofbookkeeping.com. And we're actually having an addendum, an appendix, as we were liking to call it yesterday with Rachel and myself. We did if you're just joining us and you haven't seen in the past, we did a whole series on e-commerce fundamentals, and we thought it would be a good idea to kind of do an appendix or an addendum to those fundamentals and kind of talk a little bit about some of the tech that is that's kind of necessary for e-commerce functions and e-commerce accounting, right? So hi Rachel, how are you?
I'm good. I'm having internet issues, so hopefully I can stay signed in.
All right. Now, our intention was to have kind of like a side-by-side comparison. Now, based off of Rachel's admitted internet woes, we may not have that side-by-side comparison, so we'll have a side by blank.
We'll try. I think I'm okay.
Okay. So the whole idea here, the topic that we're going to be talking about today is sales bridges. And Rachel, what do we mean by that when we're talking about a sales bridge in terms of e-commerce accounting?
Well, I don't really use that term bridge, but I know you do.
Well, what would you call it?
I usually just call it a connector, but like a connector or a bridge, or I think it all means the same thing. But in terms of, we want to get the data from some external sales platform or marketplace or POS system into QuickBooks.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I call it a bridge or connect. I guess connector to me is an overused term, right? And everybody says they connect with QuickBooks, right? So it's like, in what way, right? So
yes,
as far as those apps. So I guess when I say sales bridge, I'm you've got your sales somewhere, and you want to bridge them over to QuickBooks. I guess we'll have to figure out is it a universally adoptable term for something that is talking specifically about getting your sales from your online sales channels into QuickBooks. That's what we're talking about here today.
Yes.
So when we say bridge, sales bridge, that's what we're talking about. So I titled the the workshop, so we're going to go with that today.
Yes.
So now you and I are there's a multitude of sales bridges, sales connectors that in this space you kind of have to work them out, right? And so there's, and we had talked about this a little bit when we were talking about that topic, is that there's a choice when it comes to what do you need in your accounting system. Do you need detail? Do you need summary information? So talk a little bit about recap that kind of process that you go through with your clients. What determines whether you're going to bring over sales information on a detailed fashion or more in a summary, maybe daily option, right? What are the key factors to determining whether you want detail or summary?
Well, the most important key factor is, where is the inventory being managed? So that is, in my opinion, the most important detail of it all. And what I mean by that is, if inventory is being managed in QuickBooks, and remember we discussed in the series before that there are certain rules in which you can manage your inventory in QuickBooks, and certain things that make it so you cannot manage your inventory in QuickBooks. Most specifically, if they're doing any kind of assembly, meaning they're buying raw materials and then they're making them into a final product and then selling them, you cannot use QuickBooks Online. So in that situation, ideally they're using some kind of IMS, meaning inventory management system, and or some kind of spreadsheet scenario. I do not like the spreadsheet scenario. I usually turn those folks down just because I've had that experience and I don't like it. So if they're in some kind of IMS doing some kind of assembly, then and or managing inventory and Shopify in Stocky, which is in the Shopify App Store, or they're managing it in Lightspeed or some kind of external POS system, then we can bring in daily summaries using something like Bookkeep, which I love. Or there are several other scenarios in which you can bring in a summarized journal entry of sales for the day. Now, if they are managing their inventory in QuickBooks, you don't want to use a summarized journal entry.
Right.
You want to bring in individual sales receipts, not invoices, but sales receipts. You want those coming in and posting individually because you need the item information that is coming from the individual sales receipts to decrease your inventory with the sale and then hit the cost of goods sold that are set up with the product service item.
So the key there is where are they tracking their inventory? If they're tracking their inventory in QuickBooks Online, which, as we had determined before, the best option is the reseller of I buy stuff, I sell stuff.
Exactly.
I'm doing nothing to that stuff from the time that I buy it to I sell it. That's an okay situation for managing your inventory inside of QuickBooks Online. And if you are doing that, then you don't want to use a summary bridge, right? So this is kind of like, all of your roads are feeding into the Holland Tunnel, right?
Yeah, and also,
well, actually, we would say the George Washington Bridge.
Yeah. When I lived in New Jersey, I lived closer to the George Washington Bridge. So now, and I should mention that when you are doing it like that and your inventory is being managed in QuickBooks, then you are following the appropriate workflow with adding your, purchase orders, those turn into bills, that puts inventory on the books and all that kind of stuff. So you're sort of doing that scenario with the buying stuff and selling stuff. But when we've got people that have, got more. Oh, and then the other thing that I was going to say is managing inventory, where you're managing the inventory is, in my opinion, the most important thing. But then there's other kinds of scenarios like, okay, maybe you are just reselling stuff, but you're on several different channels and maybe you're, using several different payment methods and things that are making it a little bit too complex to manage your inventory in QuickBooks. Therefore, you're going to manage it outside of QuickBooks in a multitude of different ways. And in that situation, you can definitely use a journal entry summary.
So our favorite, I think, in this space is Bookkeep. And I'm just sharing my screen here and it's kind of walk through some of the functions of Bookkeep. I think the thing about Bookkeep that I like over some of the other competitors in that space is their ability to be able to take, well, there's two things, right? Their ability to take a report, and if they don't have, you can kind of scroll through and you can see what they currently integrate with out of the box, so to speak. WooCommerce, that's a sales channel, Lightspeed, R Series, Etsy, those Clover, those types of things. But again, remembering, the caveat that is the way it's going to come into your QuickBooks is a summary journal entry, right? They do say that they do accrual-based accounting, but when they talk about that, they're talking about separating and accounting for the passage of time from the sale to the payout, right? Yes. So that's the accrual of time that they're accounting for. They're not necessarily true accrual-based accounting where there's an accounting of the sale and then the payment and then
no, that's how they're doing it. That's how they're doing it.
the payout, so to speak, but not necessarily in an invoice type of fashion. They're not going to be able to create an invoice with line items and those
No,
types of
right.
things.
It's not like that, but it is posting in the actual day that the sale was made.
Yep.
Because in e-commerce, your sales platform settings are usually the close of day is usually midnight of whatever time zone you're in. So then we set Bookkeep to be in the same time. So it's really the total of sales for that day. So that's when the sale was made. It's not going to get posted the exact second, but it'll be posted the for the day of sales.
Right. So, so they have a multitude of connections that you can make directly within Bookkeep, but then they also have a host of ones that that don't necessarily have a direct API or a direct connection with, but they allow you to create a report in that channel and then send it to them, and then they'll create the information for you and post it, and then it posts that journal entry, right? Things like
it's really cool.
Kajabi, or something like that, where it's not, they don't necessarily play well with others or allow an API, but they do allow you to generate a report out of there, and then you just send that to them, and then they create and automate the journal entry back into QuickBooks. Now, the thing about journal entries and summaries is some of the limitations inside of QuickBooks with regards to things like sales tax and those types of things. So Bookkeep, another feature that I really like about Bookkeep is that if you do have multiple sales channels like Shopify, and those types of things, or multiple stores, and you're collecting sales tax there, they have an integration with Davo to be able to, and the way Davo works is it just simply impounds the sales tax that's been collected, so the business owner doesn't mistakenly spend the sales tax money, and then it remits and pays the sales tax for the business owner based off of that. So that's another nice feature about Bookkeep that I really like, is that you can kind of put not only your sales channels on autopilot, but also the sales tax that's done in those entities or setups as well. What do you like about? Did I steal all your thunder about what you like?
No. There's like, I actually used to. One of the reasons that they have Booker by Mindbody is because we were testing it. I used to send them the CSV reports for that. By the way, that Mindbody, anybody that's in the salon industry, like nails, salon, hair salons, any of that, that's a pretty standardized POS software for that industry. So if you're doing anybody in that world, their chances are they're going to be on Mindbody. So this is really, really great. But
they don't have a direct connection.
No, they do
directly.
now.
Oh,
yeah,
they do now.
Okay. Yeah, they added Booker by Mindbody. So, but before they did, I was sending them CSV. So, it's usually you just simply pull like a sales total by day or whatever, or sales by day, which has all the things, and then they'll just create the journal entry from that. But the one thing that I really like about Bookkeep, as opposed to some of the other ones, is that instead of having one journal entry that's like ultra complex, they actually have three. Well, for Shopify, they have three separate journal entries. And so what I like about that is that it actually made it really easy to train my team. So you've got your sales summary journal entry, payout summary journal entry, and then you've got your COGS summary journal entry. Now, you're totally dependent on the customer having their COGS accurate in Shopify, which I've sometimes don't always have. So that now I'm starting to get more into the nitty gritty with the actual inventory and management and that kind of thing. So just from all this, because I've noticed that sometimes they don't have their COGS updated, and now that's sort of what I'm wanting to get more involved with them. But when they are managing the inventory in Stocky, which is in the Shopify App Store, that's pushing it to their Shopify store, and then I can go in and make sure that the COGS are accurate. So that's going to get posted daily, but it's done that way so the actual payment coming in through the bank feed will match with the payment journal entry. So I find the splitting it that way makes it easier for me to train people on how to reconcile. That's just me. There's a couple other ones out there that have a little bit more complex journal entry when it's bringing over a journal entry. And for me, I've had a little bit harder time training my team on how to use that. But anyway, and then the other thing that I was going to say is when the stuff is coming in like from Shopify, it comes in a certain way based on Bookkeep's proprietary API connection with them. It's not necessarily going to do the same thing with WooCommerce. It's not going to do the same thing with some of the other ones. So you really have to spend some time understanding how Bookkeep works. But the one cool thing I will say about the sales tax is that, let's say you are you have several Shopify stores or whatever, you can map it all to one sales tax payable. So it's all sort of dumping into one sales tax payable. So you don't have your balance sheet with all these different sales tax payables. And we turn off the sales tax center in QuickBooks, and we just use Shopify sales tax payable, dump it all out in there. And then if we want to manage it, like separate it all out on a separate spreadsheet, like we'll do it like that. That's kind of what we're all implementing right now. But that's how I do it. Anybody else could, I'm really interested in seeing how other people are doing it actually. So, but that's for me been the easiest way to do it. And then I can just go into Bookkeep and map it, sales tax payable.
Yeah, and they have wonderful ways of being able to do a connection. Like you can send a request to your client. Like if you're not involved with, the intimate setup of setting up their sales channels or anything like that, because a lot of times I don't want to touch their Amazon Central, right? the seller central stuff. The less I have to deal with Jeff Bezos, the better. Right. So you can send a request, they put in their password and log in securely, and then you go back in and then, set up the mapping. And there's
I usually do the mapping. I'm not super comfortable with letting them do the mapping.
But you don't necessarily have to have a session with your client, right? You can just send them a request.
Yeah, it's really easy.
Easy for them to set it up, and then Bookkeep comes back and says, hey, you're all set to go. And then you can do little magic wands in the mapping. If the accounts aren't there, it'll create the accounts. And then it also will, if there are changes that you make in your mapping after something's already been posted, it updates the same transaction. So you don't have to delete transactions and repost and those types of things. So, wow, we weren't even going to talk much about Bookkeep, but here we are talking about nothing about Bookkeep. But if you want to learn more about Bookkeep, there's a little QR code. You can just snap out your phone and learn more about it there. So I'll get rid of that QR code. Well, I'll leave it up there because I didn't talk about it. Didn't leave it up there long enough. But if you want to find out more information about Bookkeep, you can certainly do that. So there's other. So that's great, and probably the best in class, I would say, with regards to if you're sending over summary information. There's some buts about that, like with sales tax and inventory management and those types of things. But if you are settled on, I just need to get a daily summary, Bookkeep is probably the best way to go there with regards to that, because they have the largest number of integrations, as well as not out of the box integrations, but ways to get things into Bookkeep and automate the online sales channels that way. Mm-hmm. Now the next question or the next caveat is, well, what if I'm managing the inventory inside of QuickBooks, right? So I can't use Bookkeep for that. So I've got to look at something else. So this is what we were originally planning to do, is have this side-by-side comparison, because you like to use Synder. I love
Synder.
Right. So let's talk about and unpack a little bit about these two sales bridges that bring over detailed information. What do you like about Synder? And first, I thought it was Snyder, because I was always seeing it, and I guess I'm a little bit dyslexic, but it's actually Synder. What do you like about Synder, and why are you working specifically with them?
Well, I like that it brings over the individual sales receipts. And I like that the dashboard is pretty easy for me to understand. Now that, I'm pretty used to it. It's pretty easy to map everything. And sorry, I'm hearing all kinds of like weird background noise. I'm kind of like, ah.
And plus, you've
But what
got those voices in your head that you have to contend with.
I know. What I love, 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 love about Synder is the ability to bring in historical transactions, and then it doesn't have to sync. I can bring it into my dashboard first, look at them all, then I can, and like, okay, say for instance, I'm bringing in like Etsy, okay, because I have some clients on Etsy. And if you know anything about Etsy, it's got all kinds of little things. Like it's very, there's a lot of fees. Okay. So there's a lot of listing fees, shipping fees, advertising fees, sell now fees. I mean, all kinds of nonsensical fees. So then,
so they're like right up there. They're right up there with Amazon with the number of weird fees that you just have to bite it and take
so then there's the actual sale and all kinds of stuff. So there's all kinds of different lines that it's bringing in. Well, sometimes I just want to look at I just want to look at the payouts, or I just want to look at the sales receipts, or let's say sometimes I'm weird. Like sometimes when I'm reconciling sometimes when I'm reconciling a clearing account, if I'm doing a cleanup or something, like I only want to sync these ones. So then I can do this clearing account first. And so I can kind of like do it like one by one by one. So if I want, I can just look at, or I can sort those payouts and then I can sync those. Okay, now I want to look at all these and I want to sync those, right? So I can kind of look at all of the different things and group them and sync them as I go. Then when I have everything mapped, I know it's all working, then I can turn on auto sync. And it'll just sync automatically like that. It'll sync over the individual sales receipts. And then let's say then it'll post a total payout, and then it'll come through the bank feed and it'll match that. And then I know my mapping is all set up correctly and I can just turn on auto sync. Same with, I really love the way that they sync Stripe. Oh, it's my favorite. But so my favorite is the way that I can import it into the dashboard, hold off on syncing it. I can kind of, get my figure out exactly what I'm looking at. Then I can sync it. And then the other thing that I really like is, let's say I inadvertently synced it and I did something wrong and I want to like back it all out. Then I can select them all and I can roll it all back. So I can roll it all back all at once in case I've made some kind of mistake in the mapping, or if I need to redo it. So that's what I really like about that. It allows me to kind of break things up into different bits and pieces and kind of manage it like that.
Got it. Now, everything that you said seemed to resonate with the things that you can do in Webgility. I was introduced to Webgility because we do a lot of website creation, and that was its only way to get it into QuickBooks. So I figured I better have to learn this, and that was introduction by what's the word I'm looking for? There was only one option, so of course,
but like now it's, as you probably know, now the tech moves so fast. Like now Synder has this business insights reporting where you can consolidate e-commerce channels and have one dashboard and have KPI reporting. I mean, I haven't even like gotten into that stuff. So, but I'm glad that it's there. So there, a lot of these now have overlap in their functionality. And so it's hard. Sometimes it's information overload. So, but you explain how the tech of Webgility works and kind of what it does. Cause that's what I wasn't as familiar with, because I kind of bypassed Webgility and I kind of went towards these other things. But explain exactly what Webgility is doing.
Yeah, so I mean, it's in the same category as Synder, where it will, and in the same category as Bookkeep as well. It's just how, right? It's how you do that. And what I do like about Webgility is it is kind of a one stop shop. So if you do want to have a summary, you can do that. If you want to have the detail, you can do that as well. And the inventory sync is across your sales channels is what I really liked about it as well. So they have a desktop application. The online only does certain things and only integrates with certain things, and the desktop is a little bit more robust. But if you're in an online space, especially with e-commerce, it is kind of weird to have to download and install a desktop software just to manage your online connections, right? So,
Yeah.
but it is a little bit more robust, and that's one of the things that really appealed to me is that they can sync with QuickBooks Desktop, they can sync with QuickBooks Point of Sale. Well, that ship has sailed with that.
Yeah.
Uh, they can sync with NetSuite, they can sync with um, QuickBooks Online as well, right? And that's all within their desktop application. Their online application only syncs with NetSuite and QuickBooks Online.
But
And they
that
also sync
becomes
with
the
Xero.
inventory source of truth, right? Where the inventory lives, and then it pushes the inventory levels to the multi-channel, which is
Right,
something QuickBooks Online absolutely cannot do.
right, right. So if if you have multiple sales channels, so actually, let me share my screen here. This is one of my clients. He has a Shopify store and an Amazon store, right? So if he sells something on Amazon, if he's using the inventory sync option, he'll the order will come down. It will be posted to QuickBooks, and then the inventory will sync back to both sales channels. So if he has an independent, you have to, when you have multiple sales channels, Etsy, Shopify, Amazon, what have you, and you have to manage those inventory levels. This allows you to do that because it doesn't matter if you sold it out of Shopify. Once the order comes into QuickBooks, it will decrement or lower your on hand quantities, and then it will feed that information back to the other sales channels.
Yeah.
One of the other things that I really do like about um, Webgility is that you don't have to have access to the sales channel itself, right? So when the order comes in, there it is. I can look at it and I can see the details of the order, assuming it decides to show up. There it is. I can see what was sold. I can see the
That's
shipping.
great.
I can see the order revenue, the fees that are associated with the order itself. If there's a refund, I can see the refund right here,
I
and
was
then the
just going to
history.
ask, how does it do refunds?
Yeah. So in this particular case, it was refunded because there is a sales history dealing with that, and then it will do it will send over the sales order, and sends over the refund. Another nice checkpoint that they have is they don't send over the refund if the original sales order or if the original order hasn't been synchronized to their accounting, right? So you wouldn't want to have a refund sent if the order wasn't sent. But I do like that you can see that history and that profitability, all those things that are kind of broken down here. Now, if they don't have an integration or a direct integration, like the shipping fees, for example, these are the yeah buts, with all of these sales connectors or sales bridges. If they don't have, and you alluded to that a little bit earlier, that eBay or Etsy or Amazon or Shopify, they all are handled a little, they do things a little bit different. It's like the difference between banking with, Visa, charging cards with Visa, MasterCard, or American Express. American Express does things a lot differently because they can, right? They're not just a credit card issuer. They're also a financial institution, right? So they can do things that other people can't. So eBay, they like to do things their own way because they like to do things their own way. So a lot of these APIs and integrations and integrators, as they say, yeah, we synchronize with eBay, but they don't do anything with the payout, right?
Yeah.
And that's one of the caveats of this is that yes, they bring down the Shopify orders and the refunds, but they don't do anything with the payout, right? So they can tell, as we look at this particular order, they can see that there are fees associated with the order, which this is the Shopify payment fee.
Mm-hmm.
But if they don't have, it doesn't tell, like it doesn't come down in here when that payout happens, and then push that information over to QuickBooks as well. So that's one of those things that is kind of like the devil's in the details when it comes to these bridges. Is you have everything all here in one place, but you don't have the Shopify payout, right? When you look at
so Webgility isn't getting the Shopify payments,
right? Well, they're getting the fees from Shopify payments.
Yeah.
So that way they can see, and account for the fees as they're
but then they're only depending on the payout coming through the bank feed to really say what the payout is. Yeah.
Which is a little bit more work on the accountant and bookkeeper's side.
Yeah, I don't love that.
If we're going to be putting things through a clearing account, I'm going to need to make sure that reconciles to zero to make sure that everything came over that it should and that everything got paid out as it should.
Yeah. So what that means is then in the bank feed, you have to add those payouts to the clearing account, not match them with something that's already being put in the clearing account. But one thing that you could do is if Webgility syncs with Stripe, then if you're like, let's say for instance, if like you're using something like WooCommerce, if you're able to pull the individual sales receipts from WooCommerce, and then if they're using Stripe as their payment method, not WooCom payments or something, then you could sync Webgility with Stripe and then post the payouts there. Doesn't that make sense?
Yeah, but then you end up with, especially with Shopify, if you're using a non-Shopify payment processor, they typically will charge you an extra fee or up to 2% more for not using their payment processor, which
is weird because Shopify payments is powered by Stripe.
Yeah, I mean it's here, right? Like it's here as a Shopify payments, right?
Oh, then why isn't it coming through? Now I'm confused.
Yeah, right. Well, if you decide to use the journal entry, they can do that, but they can't do it on the detail, which is
oh, I see. Okay.
It does say right here, post Shopify payouts to QuickBooks. Maybe I haven't set up the settings right here. So let's go into look at the connections. I may be able to help.
Because it should be posting something to represent the payout, right? Saying this is your payout to be expected.
Yeah. It looks like show me the fees. It's showing me the fees and post the fees along with the orders. So this has nothing to do, and this is with the Shopify
actual payout,
payment, right? Which is kind of weird.
Yeah. Weird.
So I may need to have a conversation with the folks over at Webgility as to why it says posting Shopify payouts.
And just to let you know, like the reason that this is a thing, and I always like to explain because sometimes people get really confused because this is super confusing. But the reason why this is all a thing, in my opinion, is because I'm trying to set up the bank feeds in a way where I just want matches. And so I want all the stuff posting on automation, but I also want to avoid having to add, right? Adding causes problems. And so whether or not my team is doing it or I'm doing it, even if I'm adding, like say for instance, PayPal, and I'm using PayPal payments clearing. And so I have to add those transactions that are coming through because I don't want a duplicate. I have to add them to a clearing account. I'm trying to set up everything I can for match, not add. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Because I mean, the biggest challenge is when things come in through the bank feed and you're trying to decipher what that is. I was just about to go into the bank feed of this particular client so that you could see that everything that comes in from Shopify has Shopify garbage in the
Yeah.
in the bank details, so you can't tell what that is, and especially if and we had talked to and alluded to this in other workshops that we were talking about, is that clients can get click happy and go, okay, Shopify says, okay, I can do Shopify installments, or Afterpay, or I can add a firm, or I can do Sezzle, or, yes, click, yes, I want more sales, and I want to be able to, do offer more to my clients or my customers in my online store, without realizing the ramifications of doing that. So again, ends up being a clearing account nightmare.
Yeah.
As we had talked about, when you have multiple payment options available across multiple sales channels, right? So if you have an Amazon store that you can accept PayPal, and then you have a Shopify store that you can accept PayPal, that's all going to go into the PayPal side of things and not the Shopify clearing account, because there's
right. But then are you telling your clients they have to have their own PayPal for a separate PayPal for each one? Because
that's something
I
I
can't.
learned. That's something I learned from you, right? Like,
Yeah,
when
we
they do
can't
that,
do one
create
PayPal. Yeah, it's too much.
right. So I was going to take a look here and see if he's got, like, because we can set up rules when it says Shopify, but then there are so many things that could potentially come in from Shopify. We can't determine, if you have a client who's kind of creeping the scope of of what it is that they're allowing themselves to do, which might have an impact on you and your workflows as a someone who's trying to wrangle or herd these cats, that
Yeah.
that's happening here.
Yeah, and I think that
Yeah,
this is the kind of bookkeeping and accounting that is most prone to scope creep. But I guess probably everybody says that in their own little niche. But
yeah,
I feel like these clients are like, let me just add on this, payment method, not thinking that requires something else. Or, oh, look, I'm going into Shopify now, and now it's saying, I can just connect my Facebook, or I can just da 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 da. So like whatever
right.
they're using is making it really easy for them to add on more complexity, but then that's more that complexity that we have to do on our side, and it's really easy. I said this before to you. They think makes it easier on us to use the same PayPal, but it doesn't, because it's where it's paying out to. If it's all paying out to one account, it's too complex. I mean, it's doable, but I would rather keep it separate.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm just looking at um, the banking information here of this particular client, and it's all over the place, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but this is, of course, as we had mentioned earlier, this is my educational client. He's definitely one of those people that decides to do something, then tells me about it later, and then I get
Yeah.
to learn what the heck does that mean. But
Yeah, I
as
mean, and
you're
there's always gonna be some of that. And honestly, I don't even really mind that so much, as if it's in their, already kind of what I'm already. Okay, here, I'm not explaining this right. If it's in Shopify, and let's say they're just adding something on in Shopify, and then it's quick for me to learn it or figure it out. If it's a complete, let's say they're like, oh, I decided to get off Shopify and go on Kajabi and like redo the whole entire thing, then I'm like, oh no, like I have to know what's going on with all of these changes, because this changing, and I have to rebuild and remap everything.
Yeah, so um, that's kind of an overview of these sales bridges, sales connectors, when you have multiple sales channels. Now, next week we're going to take another break for the holidays and whatnot. And we appreciate those of you that did join us the day before Thanksgiving. So we hope we're thankful for you. I'm thankful for you, Rachel, for taking time out of your day while I'm sure everything, you still need to buy the turkey, or you have somebody buying the turkey for you.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I had to send her to the grocery store to go get the turkey.
Say, I can't get my own turkey because I got to meet with Dan. Damn it. So I appreciate that. But next week we'll be off while under the replay. But after that, we hope to have We Integrate come on and talk about. They have a really nice Shopify connector. They are starting with Shopify, but they actually have some things that I think are a game changer in that type of industry.
Oh yeah, really I saw their booth at QuickBooks Connect.
Yeah, they Mark and Gentry there. They have really kind of handled the Shopify space. And as you know, being a Shopify partner, I mean, they change things regularly. It's kind of like dealing with Google when it comes to making rapid changes. But once they have it figured out for their Shopify, then they'll start to lather, rinse, repeat with the other sales channels. But if you have a client that is only and solely in Shopify, they are a good solution today even. So we hope to have them on in a couple weeks where they'll be able to kind of demonstrate their practice or their solution. And we appreciate you joining us today. And if you have any, we've got some QR codes there as you're maybe watching this replay or on the podcast replay. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry to interrupt, but I just want to say, so if that thing you just said about if they're only in the Shopify space, so Shopify is making, and this is something that I was so bummed about because I didn't have enough time for the vendor floor at QuickBooks Connect. This is why I said that we need another day. We need one more day of QuickBooks Connect because I feel like it was not enough time for me to see all the vendors. I saw We Connect and I didn't even have time to go over and talk to them. I really wanted to, so I'm really looking forward to that. But Shopify itself is making a lot of changes in the inventory space that I'm not allowed to say. So for people that are managing, or if people that are just in the Shopify world, things are going to become like really streamlined and really cool. So I really want to see how they're going to do it.
Got it. All right. Well, thanks for popping in and joining us today, and happy Thanksgiving for everyone enjoying that time with their families tomorrow. And we'll look forward to seeing you on the next Workshop Wednesday. And I have an outro video that I created, and there it is. Okay, so it's a little 5-second thing that we're going to put on YouTube so we can put other videos and whatnot. But thanks again, and you all have a great day.